Under the dim lights of an old mansion on the outskirts of London, Caitriona Balfe sat quietly by the window, watching the rain fall heavily on the autumn garden. Each drop of water hitting the glass was like the tapping of old memories, things she had tried to bury for months, but tonight, they all came flooding back. And then, she said, her voice hoarse in her icy breath, "That's enough, Tony. I don't want to hear any more." Tony McGill stood across from her, his eyes troubled, his face haggard from sleepless nights. He was no longer the elegant, composed man Caitriona had first met. Years of tension, lies, suspicion, and simmering distance had eaten them apart from within. "Kate, can you hear me one last time?" Tony's voice was broken, hoarse, as if he were trying to cling to something that no longer existed. She turned back, her blue eyes flashing coldly. "You've said too much, Tony. And most of what you've said has only made things worse." The air between them was heavy, so thick it was hard to breathe. In that moment, an unspoken truth was clear. They had reached a point of no return. Their love had once been admired by many, a fairy tale between a talented actress and a successful musician and entrepreneur. When Caitriona first went public with their relationship, the media hailed them as the perfect couple, a symbol of elegance, discretion, and respect. But behind the smiles on the red carpet, behind the handshakes captured by the camera, were long nights of silence. Tony felt overshadowed by his wife's aura, while Caitriona felt trapped by jealousy and subtle control. Tony once said, "I can't stand to see you smile at other people like that," she replied, softly but bitterly. "Tony, it's my job. I can't live in a cage because of your insecurities." The arguments became so frequent that even the maid had to avoid them. Whenever Caitriona returned from the set of Outlander, where she played Claire Fraser alongside Sam Heughan, the atmosphere in the house became thick. Tony didn't have to say anything, just the look in his eyes was enough to make her feel guilty, even though she had done nothing wrong. Rumors of real off-screen feelings between Caitriona and Sam spread across the forums. Although both denied it, Tony couldn't stand the ambiguity. One night, when she had just finished filming late and returned, Tony was sitting in the living room, a bottle of wine open on the table. He threw the phone on the table, his voice harsh. "Explain. What text message is this between you and Sam?" Caitriona picked up the phone, looked at the screen. It was just a normal greeting. "Congratulations on today's scene, you did great." She raised her head, calmly said, "Do you really think I betrayed you?" Tony was silent. But in his eyes, the answer was clear. Caitriona smiled faintly, a tearful smile. "Tony, when people no longer trust each other, everything is over." A week later, Caitriona packed her things. She had signed the divorce papers, and Tony did not stop her. But tonight, he came, without an appointment, without warning. "I just want you to know that. I still love you," Tony said, his voice trembling. "I was wrong. I was just afraid of losing you, so I became the person you hate." Caitriona was silent. She had dreamed of this moment, but now, when it came, her heart no longer fluttered. "Tony, love cannot live on fear. You didn't lose me because of Sam or because of my job. You lost me because you didn't know how to trust me." Tony bowed his head, his hands clenched as if trying to hold something back. But everything was gone. Caitriona stepped to the door, opened the latch, and the cold wind rushed in. "Go away, Tony," she said softly. "Don't contact me again. I don't want to hear anything else." After Tony left, the house fell into absolute silence. Caitriona stood there, looking around. Where once there were memories, now there were only empty spaces. On the shelf was a framed wedding photo of her and him smiling brightly under the blue sky of Somerset. She picked it up, looked at it for a long time, then put it face down. "We were so happy," she whispered, "but maybe fate only allowed that for a short time." That night, she did not sleep. She wrote a letter, not to Tony, but to close the past. "Thank you for loving me. Thank you for teaching me that love requires freedom and trust, not possession. I hope you find peace where I cannot give it to you." The next morning, Caitriona went to the airport. She had a flight to New York to attend a film event. In the crowded hallway, people still recognized her, the actress who had once made the world admire her. But no one knew that behind her sunglasses were red eyes after a sleepless night. Sitting in business class, she opened her phone. There was a message from Sam Heughan. "I heard you've been through some unpleasant things. If you need a friend, I'm always here." Caitriona smiled slightly, not because she hoped for a new relationship, but because she felt truly heard. "Thank you, Sam. I'm fine now." The plane took off, passing through the white clouds. In that moment, she realized, sometimes you have to let go to be truly free. Meanwhile, in London, Tony sat in the small bar where he and Caitriona had their first date. The glass of whiskey in front of him was still intact. He quietly looked at the old photo on his phone. She smiled brightly, her eyes clear, her hair blowing in the wind. "I lost you, not because of anyone else, but because of myself," he whispered, barely audible. A drop of water fell onto the screen. He wiped it away, but he couldn't erase the regret that gnawed at his heart. In the weeks that followed, Caitriona didn't mention Tony in any interviews. When asked about her personal life, she just smiled. "I'm learning to slow down and love myself more." People speculated, even made up stories, but she kept quiet. That silence wasn't avoidance, but the strength of a woman who had gone through trauma and grown from her own brokenness. She devoted her time to work, to volunteering, and to her own soul. In new photos, Caitriona was brighter than ever, peaceful eyes, genuine smile. A year later, standing on stage to receive the prestigious award, Caitriona recalled the past in a soft voice. "I used to think that love was everything. But then I realized, sometimes, the most precious thing is to dare to let go when that love makes you lose yourself." The auditorium was silent. For a moment, the camera panned to Sam Heughan sitting in the audience. He smiled, his eyes shining with pride and sympathy. Caitriona bowed her head in thanks. Inside her, all the pain had closed. No more resentment, no more tears, only gratitude for everything that had helped her become stronger. These were no longer words of anger, but the declaration of a woman who understood that some things should end in silence, and some people should only remain in memory. On the last night of autumn, Caitriona lit a small candle by the window. The pale yellow light reflected off her face, calm, quiet, and proudly beautiful. The candle not only marked the end of a love, but also symbolized a new beginning. A Caitriona Balfe free, strong, and confident in herself. Candle. I don't want to hear anything else. No longer a rejection, but a voice of liberation.